Hello and welcome. Today we are going to study Paper 3 Indian National Movement. In this lecture, we would mainly focus on Unit 3 Indian National Movement as mass movement. Let me first introduce myself. I'm Professor Ms. Himali Sangvi. I'm working as Assistant Professor at KJ Somaiya College of Arts and Commerce Autonomous. Somaiya College runs Center for Gandhian Studies and presently I am Chief Coordinator of this center. Now, coming to the topic, it is divided into two subsections. The first subsection talks about nature, program and philosophy of non-cooperation, civil disobedience and Quit India movement. The second section deals with the participation of women, peasant and workers in the national movement. This unit will help us to understand the nature of the Gandhian movement, the influence of the philosophy of Gandhi on the country, and the response of the Indian people towards this movement. Mahatma Gandhi was a major leader of Indian freedom struggle. He is commonly known as Bapu in India. He is honored as the father of the nation. The emergence of Mahatma Gandhi as the undisputed leader of the freedom struggle is an interesting chapter of Indian history. Under his leadership, the national movement became mass movement. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was born in a small town, Porbandar, in Kathiawar on 2nd October 1869. At the age of 13, he was married to Kasturbai. He completed his education in England and became a barrister. After his return to India, he began his legal practice in the Bombay High Court. His tour to South Africa in 1893 became a turning point in his life. Indians in South Africa faced racial discrimination. During a journey to Pretoria, Gandhi was thrown off a first-class railway compartment. He was holding a valid first-class ticket. However, first-class seats were used to be reserved for the Europeans. This and other experiences converted Gandhi from a shy lawyer into a champion of the rights of the Indians. Speaking about Gandhi's South African experiment, Gandhi achieved two major successes. He was able to unite all sections of the Indian community there. Secondly, he conducted the whole struggle in a non-violent manner. In this process, he evolved the doctrine of Satyagraha. The term Satyagraha consists of Satya, that is truth, and Agra stands for insistence. Gandhian philosophy had two major elements, truth and non-violence. He defined it as soul force or love force. The Satyagrahi would resist evil but not hate the evildoer, for Satyagraha was an appeal to arouse the conscience of the wrongdoer. The device of Satyagraha was thus based on universal humanitarian principles of love and human dignity. Thus, the blueprint for the Gandhian method of struggle had been evolved and thereby made him prepared for the next phase leadership of Indian nationalist struggle. Gandhi returned to India in January 1915. His heroic fight for the Indians in South Africa was well known to the Congress leaders who had formed a high opinion of his organizing ability. During the course of 1917 and early 1918, he was involved in three significant struggles: in Champaran in Bihar, in Ahmedabad, and in Kheda in Gujarat. Champaran, Ahmedabad, and Kheda served as demonstrations of Gandhi's style and method of politics to the country at large. To quote Bipin Chandra, he came to possess, as a result of these struggles, a surer understanding of the strength and weaknesses of the masses as well as the liability of his own political style. This quotation is from India's Struggle of Independence. These struggles also helped him find his feet among the people of India and study their problems at close quarters. The first movement that he undertook was the non-cooperation movement. Let's have a look at the background and causes of this movement. By the beginning of 1919, Gandhi had become one of the most prominent leaders in the country. During this time, the British government appointed a committee with Justice Sidney Rowlatt as its president. As per the suggestions of the committee, the government passed Rowlatt Act on 21st March 1990. The act gave power to the government to imprison without trial any person suspected of revolutionary activity. Gandhi made an appeal to his countrymen to observe a total hartal in April 1919 against the Rowlatt Acts. The hartal was a success. There were demonstrations and strikes in the country. In April 1919, Gandhi was arrested, which created disturbances. In Punjab, anti-Rowlatt movement spread widely. Two popular leaders, Dr. Satyapal and Dr. Kichlu, were arrested without trial. This was followed by disturbances and the military was called to deal with the situation. On 12th April 1919, Brigadier General Dyer issued a declaration prohibiting public meeting in Amritsar. A public meeting was held at Jallianwala Bagh near the Golden Temple in Amritsar. On 13 April, Baisakhi, both a harvest festival and the Sikh religious New Year. The place had only one entrance gate. General Dyer proceeded towards the meeting place with 150 of his soldiers. He ordered the troops to open fire without warning. 1,650 rounds were fired. No less than 400 persons were killed and 1,200 were wounded. The Jallianwala massacre spread a current of horror all over the country. As a protest, several Indians renounced their titles. Rabindranath Tagore gave up the knighthood conferred on him by the King of England. General Dyer was eventually removed from active service. He was presented with a sword of honor and a purse of 20,000 pounds by his European admirers. This news shocked Gandhi and other Indian leaders. Following the Jallianwala Bagh tragedy, Hindus and the Muslims presented united front. The Muslims were disillusioned with the British due to the harsh treatment meted out to the Sultan of Turkey after the defeat of Turkey in the First World War. Muslims in India launched agitation in favor of the Sultan, who is also known as Caliph. The movement therefore came to be known as the Khilafat movement. On the advice of Gandhi, Khilafat leaders adopted the policy of non-violent non-cooperation. The next point that we will take up is nature, program and philosophy of the non-cooperation movement. In March 1920, Gandhi presented the non-violent non-cooperation program. This was the first public presentation of the technique of political action that would dominate the Indian scene for the next few years. In September 1920, the Congress at its Calcutta session accepted the program. In the Congress session held at Nagpur, the Congress declared its aim and objective as the attainment of Swaraj by peaceful and legitimate means. The program of the non-violent non-cooperation included boycott of foreign goods, boycott of government offices, law courts, schools and colleges, boycott of titles and honorary office, boycott of local bodies and provincial legislatures, non-payment of taxes, establishment of national education institutions, establishment of panchayat courts, popularization of the charkha, the removal of untouchability and promotion of the Hindu-Muslim unity. The movement registered a grand success. Boycott of schools and colleges was successful. New educational institutions such as the Jamia Millia and the Kasi Vidyapit were established to provide education along national lines. Many members of the legal profession gave up their practices. C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru gave up their legal profession and devoted themselves to the national cause. The production of khadi cloth was encouraged. Many gave up the use of foreign cloth. The use of charkha became widespread. A number of women participated in the non-cooperation movement. The peasants and workers also participated in the non-cooperation movement in large numbers. When the Prince of Wales landed in Bombay on 17 November 1901, there was complete hartal. The government resorted to repressive measures for the suppression of this movement. Several Congress leaders and thousands of volunteers were arrested. There was great enthusiasm all over the country. During the movement, the acts of violence against person and property became frequent. On 5 February 1922, a sub-inspector and 21 police constables were burnt alive, and the police station was set on fire at Chauri Chaura in the United Provinces by a violent mob. Gandhi, fearing more such violent incidents, immediately suspended the movement. On 10 March 1922, he was arrested and sentenced to 6 years imprisonment. However, he was released on the ground of his ill health. The non-cooperation movement succeeded on many counts. The movement demonstrated that the masses had the capacity to take part in the nationalist movement. For the first time, cutting across caste, religion, region, education, and age, the movement truly became mass movement. Gandhi would revive his struggle in the beginning of the next decade with a more powerful weapon, that is the civil disobedience movement. The withdrawal of the non-cooperation movement had demoralized the nationalists. Several leaders like C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru felt that the nationalists should end the boycott of the legislatures. They decided to enter the councils and obstruct the government. They formed a new political party known as the Swaraj Party. The Swarajists contested the elections for both the Central Legislative Assembly and the Provincial Legislative Councils. The Swarajists played an important role in keeping the anti-British protest alive. They were weakened by the death of C.R. Das in 1925 and factionalism. In 1926, the Swarajists walked out of the Central Legislative Assembly, which brought an end to the Swaraj Party. This brings the discussion to the next point, that is, the civil disobedience movement, which was launched during 1930-1934. The background for the movement was prepared when the British government appointed Simon Commission in 1927 to deal with the problems of India. The commission was all-white commission headed by Sir John Simon, and not a single Indian was included in the commission. The commission was greeted with protest all over India. In spite of the protest of the Indian people, the Simon Commission submitted its report in 1930. The British pointed out that the disharmony among the various groups in the country was one of the reasons why the Indians were not included in the Simon Commission. The Indians took up the challenge. All parties came together and framed Nehru Report. The Congress, in its Calcutta session, gave ultimatum to the British government that if the report is not accepted by 31st December 1929, the Congress would launch a non-violent movement against the government. The British did not respond to the ultimatum. At the midnight of 31st December 1929, Jawaharlal Nehru hoisted the tricolour at the Lahore session. It was decided to observe 26 January 1930 as Purna Swaraj Day, which means complete independence. Accordingly, on that day, people all over the country took a pledge to carry on the struggle till the achievement of complete independence. The pledge was to be repeated year after year. Even today, 26 January is celebrated as the Republic Day. At the Lahore session, the Congress authorized Mahatma Gandhi to organize the civil disobedience movement. The program of the civil disobedience included violation of SALT law, boycott of schools, colleges, universities by students as well as teachers, boycott and bonfire of foreign goods, non-payment of taxes to the government, boycott of courts and government posts, picketing and boycotting of shops dealing with liquor, opium and foreign goods. By the end of February 1930, Gandhi decided to launch the movement by violating the SALT law. Dandi March. Gandhi decided to start the campaign with a march from his ashram near Ahmedabad to the seaside village of Dandi. On 12th March 1930, Gandhi left his ashram with 78 trained and disciplined satyagrahis. All of them marched on foot to the Dandi seashore and covered a distance of 200 miles in 24 days. The news of the progress of the Dandi March was carried day after day by newspapers. They reached Dandi on 5th April 1930 and spent night in prayer. On 6 April 1930, Gandhi and his satyagrahis picked up the salt lying at Dandi seashore and thereby violated the SALT Act. They made the salt there and distributed the same among the people. On the call of Mahatma Gandhi, the entire nation participated in the movement. The movement went in full swing. Jawaharlal Nehru was arrested on 14 April 1930. In the northwest frontier, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan had been active for several years. He gathered a band of non-violent revolutionaries, the Khudai Khidmatkars, popularly known as the Red Shirts. They played active role in the civil disobedience movement. Their political activities contributed to the mass upsurge in Peshawar. A number of women participated in the movement with full enthusiasm and courage. Another important feature of the movement was the participation of students and youth in the boycott of foreign clothes and liquor. Traders' associations and commercial bodies were also active in implementing the boycott. The civil disobedience movement spread to every part of the country. No tax campaigns were undertaken in Gujarat, Bihar, Bengal and UP. Defiance of forest laws assumed a mass character in Maharashtra. The British government adopted repressive measures to contain the spread of the movement. Viceroy Irwin ordered the arrest of Gandhi on 5 May 1930. There was a massive wave of protest at Gandhi's arrest. The Congress was outlawed by the British. The government was authorized to confiscate the property of the outlawed Congress organizations. The British confiscated the lands of the Satyagrahis. In May 1930, the Simon Report was published and the first roundtable conference was held from November 1930 to January 1931 in England. The Congress boycotted the conference and continued with the movement. The British government, however, realized that without the cooperation of the Congress, no solution can be found to India's political problems. The meetings between the Congress leaders and the British authorities resulted in the signing of the Gandhi-Irwin Pact on 5 March 1931. The following were the main points of the pact. The British government agreed to withdraw all ordinances and cases against the political workers, to release all political prisoners excepting guilty of violence, to return the confiscated property of the Satyagrahis, to allow the collection or manufacture of salt for consumption. Gandhi, on behalf of the Congress, agreed to suspend the civil disobedience movement, withdraw all boycott programs, attend the second roundtable conference. Gandhi attended the second roundtable conference at London during September-December 1931. He took part in the conference as the only representative of the Congress. However, no agreement could be reached at the conference. After the failure of the second roundtable conference, Gandhi returned to India. The second phase of the civil disobedience movement had already started. Gandhi and Nehru were arrested. In August 1932, the British Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald declared the Communal Award. The award divided the Hindu community by separating the depressed classes from it. Gandhi protested against the Communal Award. He felt that the Communal Award would destroy the unity of the country. He therefore undertook fast unto death at Yerwada jail from September 1932. Gandhi broke his fast only after the signing of the famous Pune Pact with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the leader of the depressed classes. The Pune Pact laid down that there would be joint electorate for all the Hindus with the reservation of seats for the scheduled caste. The number of the reserved seats for the depressed classes in the provincial legislatures increased. The third roundtable conference was held at London in November 1932. The Congress boycotted the conference. On the basis of the discussions held at 3 roundtable conferences and other deliberations, the Secretary of State for India, Samuel Hoare, introduced the bill which became the Government of India Act 1935. The Act provided greater provincial autonomy. The Indians were not satisfied with the Act. Meanwhile, the spirit of the civil disobedience movement dwindled away. So we have the next and the last movement of the Gandhian period, that is Quit India movement. Let's explore nature, program and philosophy of the Quit India movement. The Government of India Act 1935 was implemented. Provincial elections were conducted in 1937. The Congress won absolute majorities in 5 provinces and was the largest single party in 4 provinces. The Congress ministry worked in the fields such as education, welfare of the depressed classes, and public health. The Congress provincial ministries continued to work till September 1939, when the Second World War was declared. The Viceroy, Lord Lindithgow, announced the entry of India into the war on the side of the British. The elected representatives of the people were consulted. The Congress demanded the promise from the British that India would have freedom to frame the constitution after the war. However, the Viceroy insisted on the Dominion status for India as the final call. In protest, the Congress ministry submitted their resignation on 1st October 1939. Throughout the war, the British government made efforts to win over the cooperation of the Indians. On 8th August, Lord Lindithgow announced the August Offer. The offer recognized the rights of the Indians to frame their own constitution. It provided that the constitution-making body would be set up after the war. Both the Congress and the Muslim League were dissatisfied with the offer. As the British government was not prepared to accept the Indian demands, Gandhi launched the individual satyagraha. In the light of the British war efforts, he dropped the idea of the mass movement. Acharya Vinoba Bhave started the individual satyagraha at Wardha on 17 October 1940. A number of Congress leaders participated in the individual satyagraha and were imprisoned. Cripps Mission 1942. In the Second World War, England was left alone following the conquest of the Europe by Germany. As the Japanese army moved forward at India's eastern frontier, the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill was under pressure to secure the cooperation of India in the British war efforts. The Chinese President Chiang Kai-shek and the US President F.D. Roosevelt played the instrumental role in forcing the British to negotiate with the Indian leaders. The Sir Stafford Cripps, a member of the British War Cabinet, arrived in India to negotiate with the Indian leaders. He held discussions with the leaders of different political parties. Cripps' mission laid down the following proposals. India would be granted the Dominion status following the Second World War. The new constitution would be framed by the Constituent Assembly after the war. The separate constitution for the provinces was permitted. India was given the option of either continuing in the British Commonwealth or leaving it. Indian states would also have the right to remain independent. The British government would transfer all the departments of the Government of India except that of defence. Initially, the Congress was prepared to take up the long-term scheme laid down by Cripps Mission, but not the interim scheme. However, the Cripps Mission provided the option of take it or leave it. Hence, the Congress rejected the proposals. Gandhi felt that the proposals were like a post-dated check upon a crashing bank. The Muslim League also did not accept the Cripps proposals as it aimed to create the united India. The Cripps Mission failed, and it was clear that the British did not intend to arrive at a settlement with the nationalist forces. Gandhi's attitude towards the British underwent a fundamental change. He was convinced that the presence of the British in India would bring the invasion of Japan on India. In fact, at this time, Japan was knocking at the gates of Assam, and the danger to India's safety was mounting. Gandhi believed that it would be harmful for the country to be inactive under the present circumstances. Hence, Gandhi decided to launch a movement calling upon the British to quit India and leave the country in the hands of God. On 14 July 1942, the Congress Working Committee met at Wardha and passed the famous Quit India resolution. It called upon the British to quit India and transfer power to Indians immediately. The All India Congress Committee, in its meeting at Bombay on 8 August 1942, adopted the famous Quit India resolution. The resolution declared that the British should end their rule immediately. It was also stated that if the demand was not accepted, a non-violent movement on a large scale under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi would be launched against the British. The immediate reaction of the Quit India resolution was the arrest of Gandhi, Nehru, Maulana Azad, Rajendra Prasad, Kripalani, Srimati Sarojini Naidu, and all other members of the Congress Working Committee. Mahatma Gandhi was confined to Aga Khan Palace, Pune, and other leaders were taken to Ahmedabad jail. The Congress was declared an illegal organization, and its offices were taken up by the police. The government attempted to crush the Congress. The intention of the government was that this action would stifle the movement. However, the people reacted spontaneously to the government actions. As the news of the Quit India resolution and the arrest of the leaders reached the people, there was mob violence, lawlessness, and total confusion in many parts of the country. In the absence of the leaders, the people spontaneously did what they could or what they thought the best. The British administration in India was almost paralyzed. The Quit India movement spread throughout the country. Students, teachers, peasants, and workers took part in it. There were strikes in factories all over the country. Universities were almost closed. Post offices, railway stations, and police stations, the symbols of the British authority in the country, were attacked or set on fire. Trains were derailed and telegraph lines were cut off. Factories were closed and production of war materials was stopped. Parallel governments, Prati Sarkar, were established at Satara in Maharashtra, Midnapur in Bengal, and Balia in UP, and other towns and districts. In the absence of the main leaders, the second line of leaders, such as Jayaprakash Narayan, Manohar Lohia, led the movement. The Quit India was condemned by many for its violent activities and lawlessness. Government used repressive measures and used force to suppress the movement. Thousands were killed and wounded in military operations. The government succeeded in suppressing the revolt of 1942. An unarmed people, in the absence of the leaders and proper organization, could not win against the mighty power of the British organization. Even though the Quit India movement failed to achieve its chief aim, the independence of India, immediately it successfully created a tide of awakening among the people of the country that it became impossible for the English to rule over India for long. It left little doubt in the minds of the British rulers that they had to quit India earlier or later. Quite evidently, the Quit India movement thereby prepared a background for the independence of the country. Cabinet Mission Plan 1946. The Second World War came to an end in August 1945. In England, following the general elections, the Labour Party came to power, and Clement Attlee, leader of the Labour Party, became the Prime Minister. In March 1946, the Attlee government sent a cabinet mission to make proposals for the transfer of power in India. The mission was headed by Lord Patrick Lawrence. It presented a scheme known as the Cabinet Mission Plan, which laid down for the creation of a Union of India, establishment of a Constituent Assembly, and formation of an interim national government with the support of major political parties till the framing of the Constitution. The Muslim League demanded the establishment of Pakistan and resorted to direct action on 16 August 1946. In Calcutta, the shops of the Hindus were attacked and a number of the Hindus were killed. Communal riots broke out at Noakhali. On 2nd September 1946, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru formed the interim government. Elections in the Constituent Assembly were held between July and December 1946, and the first session of the Constituent Assembly began on 9 December 1946. On 3 June 1947, Lord Mountbatten announced his famous plan under which India was to be partitioned into India and Pakistan. Accordingly, the British Parliament passed the Indian Independence Act, which created the dominions of India and Pakistan. India became independent country on 15 August 1947. This brings the end of the first subsection. The second subsection is about the participation of women, peasants, and workers in the national movement. The objective of this unit is to understand the participation of different sections in the national movement and the implications of this participation. The participation of the cross-sections of the people, women, peasant, and workers in the national movement was characteristic feature of the national movement during Gandhian period, that is 1920-1947. The response from the women was very effective in the national movement. Women came forward in these movements. They gave up parda and offered their jewelry for the Tilak Fund during the non-cooperation movement 1920-1922. They joined the non-cooperation movement in large number and took active part in picketing before the shops selling foreign clothes and liquor. The women occupied a distinct and crucial place in the nationalist movement under the leadership of Gandhi. Gandhi emphasized that in order to play her full and destined role in the world affairs on the solution of conflicts by non-violent means, women must extend their interests beyond the narrow confines of their homes. He looked upon women as a potential force in the struggle to build a new world order. During the Gandhian movement, women belonging to different strata came out of their sector and participated in the meetings, processions, demonstrations, hartals, and picketing, etc. Sarojini Naidu accompanied Gandhi during his nationwide tours and addressed the meetings to popularize the programs of the non-cooperation movement. Women organized themselves in groups to conduct Khadi propaganda work. However, the participation of women during the non-cooperation movement was confined chiefly to urban areas and largely to those higher and middle-class women whose husbands, fathers, brothers, sons and relatives had already joined the non-violent struggle under Gandhi's leadership. Though no woman occupied Gandhi on the historic march to Dandi, the overall participation of the women in the civil disobedience movement was noteworthy. Thousands of women manufactured and sold salt, took out Prabhat ferries, picketed foreign clothes, and hoisted the national flag. Maniben Nanavati, for example, at Bombay, actively participated in the movement. Maniben College at Vileparle has been named after her. Kasturba Gandhi, wife of Mahatma Gandhi, played an important role in organizing women of Gujarat during the movement. Mridula Sarabhai formed a Vanar Sena, Monkey Brigade for young boys, and a Manjar Sena, Cat Brigade for young girls at Ahmedabad. The active participation of the girl students was another notable feature of the movement. Women also formed various organizations to carry on the activities of the movement. To illustrate, in Surat, women established Stri Swarajya Sangh. A large number of women were arrested during the movement. According to the government reports, a total of 939 women were arrested in Bombay alone during the second phase of the movement, that is from January 1932 to April 1933. Women also faced a lot of hardships during their imprisonment. In fact, the civil disobedience movement saw the best in Indian women. Compared to the non-cooperation movement, women were better organized, more independent, and their participation was manifold in the civil disobedience movement. Earlier, they had mainly played the supportive role, but now they were in more active political roles. The notable feature of the Quit India movement was the participation of Dalit women. To cite, Tarabai Shankar helped the underground freedom fighters by giving them refuge in her house. Women distributed unauthorized leaflets during the movement. Young girls too organized themselves for Congress activities, in some cases against the wishes of their parents. The participation of women in the Quit India movement was more intense in Bombay, Bengal, Punjab, and Uttar Pradesh. In fact, they took up the leadership of this mass movement as most of the leaders were in jail. Many women even sacrificed their lives for the cause, justifying Gandhi's message of do or die, karenge ya marenge. On the whole, women showed intense patriotism, fearlessness, courage, and organizational skill in the national movement. The entry of women in the Gandhian movement not only gave it a new force, but made it a mass movement in its true sense. We will now focus on the participation and contribution of the workers in the national movement. The participation of the workers in the national movement was very significant. In 1919, following Gandhi's arrest, the working class in Ahmedabad and other parts of Gujarat resorted to strikes and demonstrations. Waves of working-class protest rocked Bombay and Calcutta. During 1919 and 1921, the railway workers supported Rowlatt agitation, non-cooperation, and Khilafat movement. In November 1921, the workers responded to the Congress call of countrywide general strike. In Bombay, the textile factories were closed and about 140,000 workers participated in the boycott of the visit of Prince of Wales. In 1918, Gandhi established Ahmedabad Textile Labour Association (TLA). Gandhi emphasized on the principle of trusteeship, the capitalist being the trustee of the workers' interest. During the end of 1920s, the working class movement gained further strength. By 1927, various communist groups in different parts of India organized themselves into the Workers' and Peasants' Party (WPP). All India Trade Union Congress, which was established in 1920, participated in massive Simon boycott demonstrations. Soon, the government enacted the laws like the Trade Disputes Act and arrested the major leaders of the workers. Workers participated in the civil disobedience movement all over the country. The Congress slogan during civil disobedience was that the workers and peasants are the hands and feet of the Congress. During the tenure of the Congress provincial governments, the trade union movement showed a remarkable rise. The number of trade unions increased from 271 to 562 between 1937 and 1939. The number of strikes also increased considerably. While the Communist Party opposed the Quit India movement, the workers in Delhi, Lucknow, Kanpur, Bombay, Nagpur, Jamshedpur, Madras, and Bangalore participated in the strikes in the Quit India movement. In Ahmedabad, the textile workers' strike lasted for about 3.5 months. Even the mill owners supported the nationalist cause. On the whole, the participation of the workers in the national movement gave it a popular voice. The last point of this chapter takes up the contribution of the peasants in the national movement. Peasants and the national movement. We will look at the movement in two phases. That is the first phase during 1920s and the second phase of 1930s and 1940s. One of the most important landmarks of the national movement under Gandhi was the massive participation of the peasants in it. In rural areas, the peasants turned against the landlords and traders. This gave a new dimension to the national movement. In fact, in the countryside, the movement got entangled with the Kisan movement. The peasants rose in revolt not only against talukadars but also against merchants. Between January and March 1921, the districts of Rai Bareli, Pratapgarh and Sultanpur witnessed widespread agrarian riots under the leadership of Baba Ram Chandra. They protested against begar, that is forced labor. The important feature of the Kisan Sabha movement was that Kisans belonging to the high as well as the low caste were to be found in its ranks. The pattern of activity was the looting of bazaars, houses, granaries, and clashes with the police. The government easily suppressed these outbreaks. In 1921, there was another strong peasant outburst, which is known as the Ekta movement or Unity movement. The leadership of the movement belonged to a radical leader, Madari Pasi. The main grievance was against the increased rent. Malabar district of Kerala also witnessed Mappila peasant discontent. The Malabar District Congress also supported the tenants' cause and asked for the legislation to regulate landlord-tenant relations. The Mappila rebellion turned out to be violent. The government completely crushed it. The 1930s further witnessed the nationwide awakening of Indian peasants. Peasants joined the civil disobedience movement in large numbers. Peasants in Gujarat, especially in Surat and Kheda, refused to pay their taxes. All India Kisan Congress was established in Lucknow in April 1936, which later was called All India Kisan Sabha. The Sabha brought out the Kisan Manifesto consisting of the demands 50% reduction in land revenue, the abolition of feudal dues, security of tenure for peasants, and the recognition of peasant unions. Kerala, Andhra, Bihar, and Punjab were the areas in which the mobilization of the peasants reached an unprecedented scale. The end of the Second World War, followed by the negotiations for the transfer of power, marked a qualitatively new stage in the development of the peasant movement. The demand for zamindari abolition was pressed with a greater sense of urgency. In Telangana, the peasants organized themselves to resist the landlord's oppression and played an important role in anti-Nizam struggle. In conclusion, it can be said that the peasant movements in the 1930s and 1940s were spread throughout the entire country. Though all these efforts were not successful, they at least created the climate in favor of the post-independence agrarian reforms. Now I am going to summarize the chapter. The national movement during the period 1920-1947 under the leadership of Gandhi was undoubtedly a landmark in the history of Indian struggle for independence. Gandhi emphasized truth and non-violence in the nationalist movement. Rowlatt Act, Jallianwala Bagh tragedy provided the background of the non-cooperation movement undertaken during 1920-1922. The movement witnessed massive participation but was later withdrawn by Gandhi following the violent incident. The second movement, civil disobedience movement, consisted of the famous Dandi March in 1930. The third movement of Gandhian era was Quit India movement of 1942. This movement turned out to be violent and spontaneous in the absence of the major leaders. The Indian national movement during 1920-1947 became a mass movement in its true sense due to the participation of the peasants, women and workers in it. It was due to the inspiring leadership and all-encompassing vision of Gandhi that the cross-sections of the society became participants in the freedom struggle. With that, we come to the end of the chapter. What kind of questions you can have for self-study? First, discuss the role of Mahatma Gandhi in the Indian national movement with special reference to the non-cooperation and civil disobedience movements. The second one can be examine the nature, program and philosophy of the Quit India movement. From second subsection, you can have describe the role of women and peasants in the national movement during Gandhian era 1920-1947. And the last one give an account of the participation of the workers in the national movement during 1920-1947. You can refer Bipin Chandra's book India's Struggle for Independence, Sumit Sarkar, Modern India. For further studies, there are books S.K. Goyal, Gandhian Perspectives on Industrial Relations, B.R. Nanda, Gandhi, A Pictorial Biography, Bharti Thakur, Women in Gandhi's Mass Movements.